Make yourself as comfortable as you can. I'll try to be brief, but I do want to give you, that's really comfortable. Guy undressing off stage over here. I have to explain for the audience at home. I'm nicknamed Survivor Jack because, like Snake Blocker, I appeared on Doomsday Preppers. And I wore the hat, and everybody started saying me and going, "Oh, Survivor Jack, Survivor Jack." So I'm going to take it off simply because it's kind of warm in here, and you may be able to hear air conditioning in the background. But I want to tell you how my experience with Bruce Lee affected not only my view of martial arts, but my view of life and the conclusions that it's helped to bring me to. I've got a new grandbaby, so I said this may be the best chance that I'll ever have to videotape this, and I'm going to use your time wisely because you represent her. When I was a young boy, I was a battered child, and as I grew up, I always wanted to see if I could do something so they would like me. You know, that mom and dad, that whoever out there. And I began to look for ways to express myself, and people kept saying, "You have a great voice. You ought to do something with that voice." Ironically, I loved math at the time. But I thought, well, I guess I could do something on the side, so I got into broadcasting, which turned out to be my career. They said, "Can you come up with an idea for the show, a show for yourself?" And I said, "Sure. I want to interview celebrities." So I got to be the entertainment reporter for my college radio station, and on one occasion, Bruce Lee came to town to speak at a cerebral palsy telethon. Now, at the time, the Green Hornet had just ended, but of course, he was still very popular from the series, and he came dressed in his Green Hornet attire, and everybody was just wild about him. So they said, "You had to set up your recorder backstage, and when he gets a break, you'll come back." I said, "Fine." Now, what you don't know, where's my youngest member? You think of a tape recorder like this big, or your phone record something. My recorder was this big, had a handle, had to carry it like this, set it up on a thing. It had two mics, took off a big plate, had reel-to-reel tape in those days, had to set up two microphones, gave one to the guest, one for me. I only remember asking Bruce Lee one thing: "How did you develop your style?" He asked me, he says, "What do you know about my history?" I said, "Well, really, quite seriously, other than seeing you on Green Hornet, not very much, and that one movie had made at that point." And he said, "Well, technically, I was born in the United States, and my family immediately moved to Hong Kong, and I lived in a neighborhood." And he says, "Here's what you got to really get about this." He says, "My neighborhoods are not like your neighborhoods. When you live in Hong Kong," he said, "if I left home and I started down the street this way, there were the Kung Fu guys. I'd go this way. Whoop, there were the Aikido guys. Better go this way. That's the Judo guys. Better go this way. These were the Kung Fu guys." He said, "Every day I literally had to fight my way out, and I had to fight my way back into my neighborhood." And he said, and the one thing that taught me more than anything else, says, don't get hung up on one style. He said, you need to go out and find out what's out there. He did ask me when we were setting up. He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm studying judo at this point." He said, "Well, judo's great." He says, "And you may be a great judo fighter, and you'll be able to beat other great judo fighters. But what happens to you if you run into the Kung Fu guy? Or what happens to you if you reach the Aikido guy? What do you do then? Your options are so limited. You need to look, and you need to study, and you need to see what it is in those other martial arts that you could adapt for you." And this was what he was explaining about how he developed this style. And it was like talking to your big brother. It was like seeing him after 5 years. He came rushing in the door, and it was like, "Oh, you're here!" And I'm going, "This guy doesn't know me from Adam. What is this about?" And he goes, "Just a minute, hang on." And he takes a second, gets a little drink of water, comes over, and he goes, "What do you want to know?" And I said, "My one question." And 20 minutes later, he says, "That's it, and I'm going to take my break now." I went, "Thank you." And his assistant said, let me get a Polaroid. And that's where the picture came from. And he's right. Probably not a dozen people in America or the world have seen the picture up to this point, except close friends. So I looked at that and my life, and I began to realize that what I was as a person wasn't simply a person struggling to understand how I'd gotten out of this battered situation and how I go into life, but it made me examine I was getting into martial arts for the wrong reasons. One, I knew I was getting ready to go to Vietnam, more than likely, which is why I first joined. What I really realized was I was going in there to fight. I was going to use this to take out all my rage on some other poor bastard. And after a 20-minute conversation with Bruce Lee, I suddenly went, it's not at all about fighting. It's not anything about fighting. It's about what's in here. It's about what you do with your life when you're out there. So I looked at myself and I said, what am I? Well, I'm a generalist. I'm somebody who likes to know a little bit about everything. And as I went forward in my life, I had a variety of careers. I'm just like crazy. Every time I got bored, I would change careers, it seemed like. But what this has brought me to, and a piece that I kind of skipped over, was when I realized I was going to go to Vietnam, I thought, you know what? I'm going to talk to my dad about what I should do. Should I join up? Should I wait and see if I get drafted? My draft number's fairly low. I went to my father, who'd been 30-year Army, and I said, what do I do, Dad? And he said, well, I learned all the mistakes that the Army can make. Pick another service and find out what the hell they do wrong. So I said, okay, who? And he said, well, you think you're going to have to go fight? I said, yeah. He said, who would you want to go fight with? I said, well, that's the Marines, obviously. He said, good, go join the Marines. So I joined the Marines, did my 6 weeks, went back, got my knee kicked out in judo, and that's why you see me crippling around to this day. But it did focus me on the softer forms, Tai Chi, things like that, and to be able to still maneuver at the age. And I think if you were watching me doing some of the video, you were noticing some of the moves that I was making sort of resembled, as I'm photographing, what you would think of as traditional martial arts. Okay? Now comes the Haiti earthquake. At this point in my life, I'm a real estate instructor for Kaplan Professional Schools, and it was 15 days after the Haiti earthquake. And all of a sudden, they interrupted a news report, and I was working on a class schedule, and they said they have found a woman alive 15 days later. What's my first thought? Impossible. 3 days without water. You can't do that. Turns out she was in a basement, trapped in the bathroom. She had a little stream of water. They said she was probably hours away from starvation, and the team was working to dig her out. The moment that little girl's face came into the light, I had an epiphany. I don't know how else to say it. I mean, it was something so profound that in a moment of time, I just went, holy cow, I've seen 40,000 ideas and I know what we need to do. Now, at 65, how the heck do I get this out to the world? So I have chosen, for one thing, I'm trying to get on the Ellen DeGeneres show. Because I think we, the people, need to begin to look at what's going on in our society. Now, I highly agree that any martial art is a great way to help people get clarity of mind, to get clarity of spirit, and certainly to be able to focus better. But we also have to look at what is it that makes you and me human. What is the trait? What is the characteristic? I'm going to give you one really profound question right now. When I look out at any one of you, when I look at Bill right there, how much of that Bill is human DNA? None of it. You're closer to right than anybody can imagine. Yeah, it's something like less than 1%. We have so many biological organisms that live on us, that live in us. We are in ourselves a universe, a solar system. I don't know what you want to call yourself. But there's something in us that is so profound that it takes us to another level. So the question that I asked earlier, and by the way, the last question is going to be the question of your lifetime. But the next question we're going to look at is, what is it that makes humans different than any other species on this planet right now? Not opposable thumbs, isn't language. Empathy, that's really good. We do know, though, that when owners died, dogs go and grieve at their grave. We do know when elephants die, there's actually a elephant burial ritual, right? Let me tell you this. We call them a murder of crows. They should actually be called a group for a choir of crows, because they show up when another crow dies. No. What makes human beings unique from all other species is we will help other people when it's not even in our best interest. You ever see somebody drown in a lake? People go running down, jump in the lake. They don't know the guy. Not necessarily. When the plane went down in freezing cold water off of Washington, D.C., slammed into a river full of chunks of ice, people jumped out of their cars and ran down and started pulling out the survivors. One man jumped in and was swimming out to the wrecks. When the first responders came, oh, wait a second. I'm sorry, did I just tell you one of our society's great myths? See, those firemen that showed up later, they weren't the first responders. The first responders were who? You and me. It's us. It's not them. It's not the fire department. It's not the police department. 95% of the time, they're not there when we need them. Well, then who's going to take care of us when there are great mass casualties? Has anybody noticed what appears to be a large increase in the number of mass casualty situations? Have you noticed Nice and London twice, and Egypt? And did you hear the one the other day in Italy, where they were going to watch the soccer game in the town square, and some idiot set off a firecracker, and in less than 1 minute, 1,500 people were laid out in that square, injured. If you haven't seen the video, look it up. It's like dominoes falling. One starts to run from the noise, they all do. In Manchester, there were young teenage women jumping over railing, landing on other kids, trying to get out. In the gunfight situation the other day, I've always told my wife, I said, don't count on guns. Really, don't count on guns. She goes, oh, their guns are very important in one way. I said, well, let's look at the situation the other night. The nightclub shooting the other night, 25 people were shot and none seriously wounded. Oh, by the way, the 3 that were seriously wounded were injured in the rush of people trying to get out. So we as society have to stop and look at something. It's very easy in a way. I probably learned another 30 different ways to kill people just since I've been here this weekend. I got to have at least 30 more. Now, let me ask you something. When I go to get on a plane, does the government tell me I cannot bring my knife? And by the way, should I know how to operate my knife, whether I'm able to see it or not? Because what if I'm in a situation where I'm blind? What if I'm in a situation where there's just no light available? So you've got to know how to do it, and you better have practiced it 1,000 times and not get it wrong. Where's the guy with one finger short? Sorry, is he here today? There he is. Not that one? Different one. Okay. So we have to be smart about what we teach. We have to be smart about what we learn. We have to be smart about how we live. If something just catastrophic happened right now, and I've got to get from here back to Denver, well, first, thank you for arming me, because I do have to bring my weapons for the shooting tonight. All right? And we will be shooting something. Now, that's another thing. What I'm bringing to the world is a way of teaching that we haven't traditionally seen.
First thing you need to know about me is I traveled around the United States, so I picked up the way that people talk in different areas. If we were having this conversation down in New Jersey, I'm telling you, we would be talking a lot different than we would say to my relatives down south. All those people talk real funny, don't you think?
And out here in the West, kid, it's just attitude, and you got a good one.
Now, if you're wanting to be going international, we could have been doing that too.
I'm telling you, I've learned to talk from people all over the place. Strangest things happen. I'm talking to somebody, and the next thing I know, I'm talking like this, and I turned to the guy and I said, why am I speaking this way now? And he says, you're from Liverpool. I said, I'm from Liverpool. He says, yeah, you're a Liverpudlian. I said, I'm glad to be a Liverpudlian. So I can take this humor. I can go into the world. We're talking about situations where hundreds of thousands, I mean, remember the day after Christmas about 10 years ago when 250,000 people were just washed off the earth? How many casualties were created in that moment? So it's really easy for us to learn how to kill people. How many of you learned how to save people? I am literally at the beginning of teaching the world we need universal first aid. Why? Because I think we're yet to have some of the biggest cataclysms. Remember the question I told you is going to be the question of this entire decade. This entire century, I'm afraid. How long can you live without electricity? That's not a joke. It's not something I go, oh, we should ponder that someday. No. The other day in Ukraine, hackers just turned off the electrical grid and says, good luck, pay us or you don't get it back. It was only down 1 hour, but if you think that's the first time, it wasn't. It's also happened twice in Brazil. In San Jose, California, a sniper took 29 of the small transformers out with rifle shots to try to bring down the California electrical grid, and thank God it didn't happen. This is a very, absolutely serious question you need to be asking yourself, and we as society need to be speaking out about. Now, why? Because I bet most of you, Snake could probably survive with his family. I have no doubt from what I know about him. But my limited military, my growing up with a rifle and shooting rabbits and stuff, my God, if 3 million people rush to the Rocky Mountains to survive living off the wild, how long would the wild last? Our expectations are totally out of sorts. I'll give you another quick example. This is the biggest blessing and the biggest curse that exists on this planet right this minute. So many of you and I are now hooked, and we know that they're using gambling machine procedures to get us hooked. How many of you could survive without this for a week? Just the thought of it, and a few of you are already going, oh, I'm not sure I can make it till dinner. Right? This has an encyclopedia on it. It has all the magazines I want to read. It has opinions. It has first aid advice. But wait a minute. If the electrical grid went down, this turned into a paperweight. Oh, well, I would have a flashlight as long as the battery lasted. You start to see. Now, if something catastrophic happened, how prepared are you? First question I ask myself, what would I want if it was a disastrous situation? So I mentioned a survival tool that I've invented. I'm just going to kind of casually hook it to my belt. I would normally do the whole bells and whistles, but you'll get the idea. I thought if I was in that Haiti earthquake, the first thing I'd want's a tool. So if I have a tool, I'm going to need handles, wouldn't I? Cool. Let's put the handles together, because now we've got a full-size handle we could use. And the first head that I designed, this is a 3D printed model, is a hammer, hatchet, and pry bar. Full size, in your pocket. Backpack, Purse, panty pouch, briefcase. I showed this to a guy. About 2 months later, I got an email from his dad. And I went, what the hell is his dad? What is his dad sending me an email for? He said, after you had your talk with my son and you showed him your 3D tool, said he's driving down the freeway, the truck in front of him catches fire, and he went, my dad gave me something like Jack's device. And he jumped out, busted the window out, and pulled the driver out for a fried. How prepared is your car? I'm going to show you one other little thing. As an example, this is what I call the Survivor Jack Emergency Car Care Kit. I was watching a group of people fleeing in Louisiana, and they were going across the bridge, Lake Pontchartrain. Jammed. Now, you've got thousands of cars. How doing okay on time? Or do I need to wrap up? I see these cars sitting on the bridge. They can't go anywhere. You ever have to go to the bathroom? They let you out. And you go to the 7-Eleven in the middle of the big 12-mile bridge. Ain't no place to go. Well, guess what? These are bags, large plastic, sealable bags. You just reach down the bottom, pull one out, fold it over. Now you've got at least an emergency toilet. When you're done, you can seal it up, dispose of it at a later time. There's 3 or 4 more in there. By the way, in the middle there's toilet paper. There's also an emergency candle. There's extra blankets, emergency blankets, all in one little coffee can. Do that. Now, what about if you're just out somewhere and it starts to rain? You do, of course, carry your poncho in your back pocket, right? And, of course, I've got an emergency blanket because it might be a cold, snowy rain. And if you ever stayed at one of those shelters, you're going to need the earplugs. And by the way, that is a dust mask because I saw 9/11. Did you see that cloud coming down the street? And guys, how much is this? $1, $2 is about worth of gear. And what does it cost me? Fits in the back pocket with my wallet. And speaking of that, if you carry a wallet and it's one of those aluminum kind, make sure that you've got, well, wait a minute, I missed the wallet. Oh, pickpocket couldn't have got your wallet first try. And that's just, think about it. You follow me? So little things that we can do. So getting back to the bigger picture, I want you to take back to your communities the idea, just the concept, the paradigm shift, if you want to think of it in a big concept, that we need to teach universal first aid. Because have you ever heard anybody going, oh my God, there's somebody in the lake, excuse me, you Democrat, Republican, Independent, oh, voted for the Green Party, oh, never mind. Nobody does that. Nobody runs down and goes, excuse me, you Jewish, Hindu? You're a what? Zoroastrian? I thought you people died out 2,000 years ago. Go now. I'm not saving you. No, nobody does this. Why? Because we're human. And humans will do what? We will cooperate even when it's not in our best interest. You've heard of people running into burning buildings and stuff. The firemen are taught to do this. It's all training. So where do we start the training? With you and me, really. It's got to start with us. Because somebody's got to go spread the idea. And I'm begging your help on this one. What can we do? Well, I've auditioned for the Ellen DeGeneres Show, and if you haven't already got one of my business cards, if you go to survivorjack.com, you will look at my audition for the Ellen DeGeneres Show. She said one day, if you want to be my disc jockey, and I used to be Jolly Jack Randall around Mount of Sound, so I get KCC, oh, let's take a pick at the back of the stack and play some tracks. So I thought, I've had a little experience. And then I gave us some of those voices. At the end, a friend of mine's got a green screen, so there's actually 6 of me in costumes arguing about who should be her disc jockey. I think you might like the pirate. And you look like a lovely little old British lady. She's quite lovely. Had a beard in those days, she did. So everything we can do, from being a little more prepared, from taking an idea like this, by the way, you might want to use it in a different way. Okay? What if we had dogs that had come out like in New Orleans? And we just need to keep the dogs back as we're moving away. Right? There's all sorts of arrangements that can be made with this. We could have used it as two knives. One with a smooth, one with serrated. Get it? So all of these things we do, whether it's bringing the blessings of the martial art ethics, to have somebody like Bruce Lee teach me, go out there and learn all of these various things. And I learned all the various things, and I learned how to make tools, and I learned how to speak funny voices, and I learned how to take those gifts that are given to me and turn around and give them to you. I don't know whether you heard me, that man is too strong, you've overtrained him and he's taking down your punching bag with a punch. Right? So, I'm telling you, you've got to notice that life is about the dangers that exist. I'm not discounting that in any way, shape, or form. By the way, this is even good if you're going to be taking meat off of an animal. We have thought this through. So I'm asking you, take your skills, take your gifts, take the people that you know, talk to reporters, talk to individuals, and say to them, look, if we start as children and we learn to cooperate as children, think about this. How about intramurals where my school challenges your school and we're going to see who we can rescue the most in this drill? Wouldn't that be an athletic competition worth looking at? Well, you know what? That's actually going on in England right now. That's been a series over there. Why can't we do it here? So, thank you so much, all of you, every single one of you. Bless you so much for your kindness and your gifts that you've all given me just in the time I've been here. And on behalf of what I've learned from Bruce Lee, I thank you, and I look forward to serving you in the future. Thank you very much.